do want to turn now the conversation to why Latinas or how Latinas are a central part of success when it comes to our society. We are in Hispanic Heritage Month, a month where many times businesses, individuals, just kind of take a moment to look at the role of Latinos, the role of Hispanics in our country, in our society, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to culture, when it comes to entertainment, music, sports, all of the above. I'm excited to have two strong Latinos here, two strong Hispanics being able to talk about this topic. Judy, you had an opinion article that ran in the DC Journal this week called From Heritage to Future that really talks about why Latinos are central to America's success. Tell us a little bit. I mean, what are the key points that drove you or the key points that you made in this opinion article?
Well, I felt really strongly this Hispanic heritage with everything going on in our country and everything we've been through, that this Hispanic heritage wasn't just going to be about, oh, let's talk about our meals and our food, and our music. It needed to be
Which
about,
is awesome, of
which is
course, which is
great.
tremendo.
Hey, bro,
It goes
don't
without
knock my
saying.
empanadas, please. Don't
But I
knock
wanted
my
to go deeper
empanadas.
into the role that we play in this society.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we have been a part of this country since our nation took its first breath. We were there in all the wars leading to our independence. And as we get close to celebrating 250 years of our nation's independence, we really have to recalibrate. We have to rethink, how lucky we are to live in a country that allows us the freedom and opportunity to thrive and prosper if you work hard and if, everything's there. The world is at your feet in this country. And I really, really, truly believe that. And so in this op-ed, I talk about that, the privilege of Latinas, of being in a country that allows you freedom and opportunity where many other countries that we come from in Latin America and the Caribbean do not allow women. It's very limited. And so, I went on to talk about the hurdles that we really face as Latinas, because we do face a lot of hurdles. We have limited access to startup capital, even though we start businesses at a much higher rate than our counterparts. We have language issues, cultural issues, licensing issues, regulatory red tape. All of these things disproportionately impact us, but yet we thrive. Yet we thrive. And so there's a lot of policy fixes that need to be done. There's a lot of things that women really are interested in. Like you said, the gig economy, we're big on the gig economy. We're interested in our children's education. We're interested in fixing regulation so that we can better serve our elderly, as they get older with dignity. There's a lot of issues. All issues are Latina issues. All issues are women's issues. And I'm so happy that women are getting more involved. And Latinos in general are becoming much smarter. And organizations like the Libre Initiative are really allowing Latinos to do that. So this Hispanic heritage, let's think about how we can level up and continue to be shoulder to shoulder with our fellow Americans, like we've always been from the very beginning, to protect the foundational freedoms of this country. Because the further away we get from those foundational freedoms are, Wadi, we've been able to see how chaotic our country becomes.
Very much so, very much so. And, Alejandro, I want to zero in on the role Hispanics play in the area of tech. Are you seeing, sort of to Judy's point, is there a little bit of a barrier to entry that we face? Or, this might be something that is specific to all individuals, but how do you see Hispanics? Is there a need to lean in more, or are you seeing a spike in our participation? What's your analysis in this space?
It's an interesting question. I think Hispanics are naturally resilient, right? We're now one of the largest voting classes in America, right? We're going to be really increasing the number of our population from firstborn Americans, from Hispanic couples. And so from that resilience comes entrepreneurship, right? It's about really taking your role sleeves up. And like Judy was mentioning, Hispanic women are starting more businesses. I think the most important part is like the cultural impact of what these women are doing, Hispanic women are doing, is bringing family core values, right? We actually, when you think about a Hispanic household, the stronghold is the matriarch, right? Yes, we have a patriarchic element, but the matriarch is really the glue of these family values that are somewhat American values, right? It's about taking care of your elderly, making sure the next generation is well set up, making sure that the community you're advocating for it, making sure that you're participating, you're volunteering, engaging, participation. I've actually been incredibly blessed to have a Colombian mother and a Colombian sister who have been instrumental to my personal growth as a founder, as an entrepreneur. One of the things these women have done for me is to allow me to believe in my dreams, to become an entrepreneur, to take that shot, to go out and make things happen through the cultural values that we have: honesty, integrity, hard work, giving back, and keeping faith centric to what we do, to always believe in something bigger than ourselves. And so when you think about it from a tech perspective, it's evident that in our capacity, right? More businesses are being started by Hispanic founders than ever before. And we're not just talking about big VC-backed businesses, but we're also speaking to the everyday American businesses that are more blue collar nature, right? We're seeing car washes, laundromats, we're seeing restaurants, food trucks, services that keep the economy moving forward. I think the backbone of the American economy is really truly driven by the Hispanic culture from many different perspectives, everything from agriculture all the way to technology. We're starting to see a lot more Hispanics take center stage. I think one of the more recent examples that I want to highlight here is Bernie Moreno, Senator Bernie Moreno from Ohio, right? A Colombian-born American that actually drove himself into Ohio community and society and rose from as an entrepreneur to becoming a senator, the highest office that he can get in that capacity. That is truly the sentiment. And I can promise you, if you ask him about his influence, his wife, his mother have probably been instrumental to that tenacity and perseverance that the American dream can provide to Hispanics across America.
Yeah, real good story on Bernie Moreno, someone who Judy earlier mentioned. The Libre Initiative I know has worked and had a lot of conversations and work with him in the past. Judy, when we look at the Latino vote in 2024, Republicans, conservatives made immense gains. President Trump probably won the largest amount that any modern president or any recent president has won when it comes to the Latino vote. A lot of, when you dig in deeper in the data, a lot of it was Hispanic males that made a lot of the shift. It seems that Latinas didn't shift as large in high percentages as the Latino men did. So when we look at the future and we look at 2026 and you talk to politicians, when we talk to political parties on both sides, what are the key elements that they need to understand when it comes to trying to gain and win that Latina vote?
Well, what they need to understand is that Latinas always show up. Well, women always
Mhm.
show up, and as we and the men showed up. Of course, Trump was a big driving force, in the whole masculinity and that whole conversation that all of a sudden ensued during this election cycle, where they wanted somebody really strong at the White House. But the women were influencing their husbands. The women are driving the conversation, the political conversations in their homes. So the women are always going to show up. Historically, they always have. And one can assume that as Latinas continue to grow, 30% of the population will be Latina, more so than our white counterparts. So as our population as a whole, Latinos, continues to grow, we need to pay attention to this specific sector. And I would definitely urge our leaders to start listening and not assuming, right? Everybody says, as we know, we're not monolithic,
Yeah.
but we do care about the same issues as all Americans. We saw that in the last election, where the economy, our border security, education, those things were top of mind.
Yeah.
Not even immigration; it was border security, and
Specifically,
that is how the narrative changes. And we need to be able to identify those narratives. When you talk about economic freedom, education, understand what's important to them. And move beyond the outreach during Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yeah, it
It's
has to
got
go
to be,
beyond this month.
stop being carpetbaggers. You don't just show up right before election. You have to be in the communities, the churches that are important to Latinos, the schools, wherever Latinos are at, the small business networks. It's all important. Representation matters, but I'll tell you what, respect matters a whole lot more.
Very much so. The road to the White House, the road to a Senate majority, the road to a House majority does go through the Latino community, politicians are going to have to continue believing that, leaning into that, and yes, do an outreach beyond this month. I do want to thank Judy Pino again for being here in
Thank you, Juan.
studio. Alejandro, thank you. Navia for joining our show. Once again, this has been The Game, the show where we go play by play, analyzing the game of politics.